I'm very excited to be a part of this, and I'd like to welcome all of you today to today's Poetry Spotlight with Professor Anita Nahal and our second annual literary festival. We are very excited about this. I have been appreciating the themes coming up in all of the sessions, especially earlier today with Chitra, whose writing very expertly navigates women's stories, and specifically the need to excavate them throughout history and bring them to the forefront for broader understanding of their importance. I suspect this session will grapple with a similar issue or intention. And in this session specifically, we will discuss the books of poems, What's Wrong with Us Cali Women? Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Gerrit Gillessen, joining us from at Utrecht University, Netherlands, who will moderate today's event. Hello, Gerrit. Gerrit teaches sociology at Utrecht University, Department of Interdisciplinary Social Science in the Netherlands. He has published on the sociology of intellectuals, the tension between human rights and group rights, decadence and materialism in modern Japan. And that was published in 2007. He's developed an international agenda for inclusion in higher education. And so I will let Dr. Gillessen take it away and introduce our guest today, Professor Anita Nahal. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mrs. Blackham. So let's have our conversation with our distinguished colleague and friend and writer, Anita Nahal. Let me, of course, also say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity of the DC South Asia Literature Council to have the opportunity to discuss the work of Dr. Nahal. And for those that are not familiar with Anita Nahal, let me give you a very brief introduction. But I would like actually not to dwell too much upon, say, biographical facts and achievements, which are many in the case of Anita Nahal, but I would like to go as quickly as possible more in depth into her writings and have a conversation, a dialogue about what she writes about, how she writes, what her love for words came from, what her inspiration is, etc., etc. It will be a conversation that is initiated maybe and moderated by me, but there are also some of you that were kind enough to handpick one poem from the latest work of Anita Nahal that we are going to discuss. Of course, we all know this book, What's Wrong with Us Cali Women? And there will be maybe time at the end, or maybe I will invite some of you, and I hope that you're all there, to already give your reading at a moment that is most opportune in the conversation that we are having. Yes, that's the program for today. And we have exactly 1 hour. Actually, we could spend probably much more, but we have 1 hour to get a good taste and more in-depth understanding of the writings of Anita Nahal, who is an Indian-American poet, which in itself, of course, is already interesting because it's about identification, it's about identity. So how do you present yourself? Are you Indian? Are you American? Are you Indian-American? Is it important, that connection? Who writes flash fiction, children books, is a professor. I actually first met her at Howard University, which is one of her employers. And I think that dates back to 2005, 2006, somewhere around that time, when we were working on a mutual program on the transatlantic experience of migration. And actually, transatlantic is in between experiences of American soil, but also in the European context. And that's where actually our friendship started. But also, actually, this is a topic that comes back again and again, also in the work of Dr. Nahal. And maybe it's not a secret for some of you that I like to use the work of Dr. Anita Nahal in one of my courses at University of Utrecht in the Netherlands. I teach a course on the multicultural society. And this is a kind of a course that is not just about statistics and about academic articles. It's also about the experience of migration. And I believe strongly that literature, and in this case, the example of Nahal's work, is a very good instrument for students to hear the voices from within their society, not just writing on people that are new in your society, but let them speak for themselves. And in literature, you can identify with the voice that is talking. I think that's a very important element for understanding actually the society that we are living in, which is not a closed society. All our societies are diverse, whether we acknowledge it or not. And so that's why I started actually not with this book of today, but actually we started with a book like Life on the Go, which is another novel of another flash fiction from New Delhi to America as the subtitle, that I like to use because they are, like, as the title already says, they are flash fictions. And flash fiction in the sense it is fast, it is short, it is condensed, but it's very rich in the experience. For me, it was actually something that reminded me of this project that started, maybe you know it, Humans of New York, that started in 2010, that were started out as photography, but actually very quickly became from photography to stories. And what I'm very charmed about the work of Nahal is that she actually turned it the other way around. She starts with stories and actually the pictures you build in yourself. And by talking about the work with other, in this case, fellow students or with among friends, the pictures come afterwards. So it's a kind of this process reverse. But I really, really feel that this kind of work is essentially important for understanding multicultural, diverse societies in our time. And yeah, I shouldn't be having a monologue too long on the achievements of Dr. Nahal. I just want to mention that she is not just writing poetry, but she's also writing children's books. She's writing edited anthologies in the sense that I also find, and hopefully we get it in the conversation coming up, a very kind of appealing element of actually the personality of Dr. Nahal is that she has very open style of communicating in her writing, but also open up the stage for other talents, other creative talents. And so you see that the books are illustrated sometimes with photos or with drawings from other artists. And like this, it is like, and in anthology, of course, you are the one that puts the stuff together on a general theme, but actually you also give stage. And I think that is something that, particularly in a day of age that we are living in which everything is about the I and the me and the standing out and being heard and making your mark, that we sometimes forget is that we are trying to be a community and that we have to, and try to make an understanding of what we are doing together, what we are trying to strive for together. And that I also appreciate very much. And I see that actually back in the work of Dr. Nahal. And of course, it's not for nothing that because he's doing this, and she's so good at doing this, is that she has been nominated for several awards and also won several ones, or was part of the ones that actually were ending up in the top ranking. So I'm delighted actually to be able to moderate this session. But let's go actually to Dr. Nahal herself and ask her some questions and let her speak. So maybe, can I say Anita? Yeah, because we know each other. Okay. We are among friends in this sense, right? Yeah. So can I ask you to first to explain the title of the book, like what's wrong with us Kali women, and what's wrong?
Okay, but before I begin, I want to thank you for that very in-depth analysis of my work. I truly appreciate that, and I'm so appreciative of you, who for many years you have been supporting my work. You have introduced it in your classes, and there couldn't be a bigger honor for a writer than their books being part of courses, because that increases the shelf life of the writer. So thank you so much. I also thank the DC South Asian Arts Council for this opportunity. And I want to thank my friends here who have joined from different parts of India. You have Angela Lee here, you have Dr. Meenakshi Mohan. Angela Lee is from Boston. Dr. Meenakshi Mohan is joining us from Maryland. Dr. Basudra Roy is joining us from India. I think it's above midnight, after midnight there, but she graciously joined. And Dr. Lopa Banerjee has joined us from Texas. So I'm grateful to everyone. And now to come to your question, why I wrote this title. Initially, it was a title. It's the title of one of the poems in the book. But overall, coming from India, traveling the world, seeing the different kinds of injustices that exist, particularly against women. So keeping that in mind, let's just put that here. And the other thought is that women tend to be placed on pedestals, mostly men or society, and even women themselves place other women on a pedestal. So women are supposed to be perfectionist in everything, whether it's housework or whether it's going out of the house, being a professional, raising children, even writing. In every aspect of our identities that we are trying to nurture every day, we are expected to be the best, never expected to make mistakes. So that pedestalization, being put on a pedestal, I question and many others question that why is that? So that's the second category. I'm going to weave all those together. And the third is that, when women go forward in life, whether it's professionally or personally, in anything, whether it's in your workspace, in your private space, I'm a single mom. So there is that kind of attention and focus that, there are certain terminologies like if a woman is considered ambitious, there's something negative about it. If the word ambitious is used on men, well, that's something great. Similarly, a single parent, cannot really raise balanced children. And if she does, well, there's something wrong. So that's where the title came from. A combination of all those things, that there's nothing wrong with us. Mm-hmm. We are normal human beings like everyone else. Women are normal human beings. They are human beings like everyone else. And so therefore, give us the opportunity to express ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the title came out. Like, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us, Kali women? And once I wrote a poem on it, I decided to use that as the title for the book itself, because it so epitomizes all of the injustices that I speak to in this book.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I should add also, this is for me, I read all your work. Is one of the most personal in all the others I've read, because the other ones are more also about, it's also a personal experience of, for instance, migration, moving, leaving countries behind, trying to build a new identity, using new words, new languages, etc. But this is actually, in a way, it's personal, at the same time it's very universal, because it is about the role that women play, and I think even somewhere you mention something like durable mamas, or so that it is actually women and motherhood somehow stand out in this work, and that's actually also a lens that you use very much in your work. And saying that is very personal, I also picked up one note, and that's becoming my second question, is like that it is said that living at intersections, not limiting yourself to one space or one manner, that is something that is actually characterizes your life, but also your writing in a way, I would say. So poems appear in unique blended forms, either impressionistic or one time realistic, one time it's more confessional, for those that know more about you. One time it is more surrealistic, and even say the title, or at least the kind of poems you write here, it is like, it's not just classical poetry. It is prose poems. Like someone put on the cover already. It's like a dance. It's like an intimate dance between, say, poetry and prose. And of course, that is, I started to think about this, and of course, it makes me realize there is no such thing as a pure form. Not in literature, not in writing, but also not in life. So I wondered actually, is this a willful choice of you to live on the intersections and write on the intersections and experiment with these different styles? Or is it something that can be challenging, or is it something that became a necessity for you, that's the way that you wanted to express yourself? And so not advocating this purity, but more like that life is always in the mix and in the blends, and maybe in margins where it also there's friction or whatever, that they're actually new insights and new experiences surface and can be shared for the ones that actually have an open eye for it. Can you elaborate on that a bit? So the style.
Yeah, sure. And that's a very good question. I mean, this intersection, I truly believe you have actually captured both the aspects of what I believe about myself. Mm-hmm. Is that one is that, when I was growing up, our parents brought us up in a very diverse manner. So, for example, we were living in Delhi, and we are Hindus, but our parents took us to mosques, gurdwaras, churches, so every possible religious place of worship. We traveled the world. I started traveling when I was age 9 with my parents, and then I started taking my son with me when he was only 4, taking him to all the conferences around the world, wherever I went. And I think those different experiences that I was raised in, and then we were 2 girls in the house. So our fathers raised us without that kind of questioning all the time, why don't you have sons? So our parents raised us in a very kind of liberal, if that is the word I would like to use, or progressive manner. And that and we used to talk about race, we used to talk about caste system, which is very prevalent in India still, even though it's abolished by law through the Constitution of 1950. So I think all those experiences, plus the fact that traveling allowed us to imbibe even more and question. I think questioning, the curiosity that I had, and the questioning became very critical for me in understanding myself and others. So that's one part of it. And the other is what you yourself mentioned about when you are an immigrant, you sometimes are pushed to live at certain spaces. There are no clear-cut lines. There are not boxes that within which you can put yourself. And sociologists point to various stages of when immigrants move. They go through a moonshine phase, then they go through shock, then they kind of tend to recede. Some of them turn back into their own culture and live in silos when they're abroad or in vacuum. Others tend to totally reject the country they have come from and adopt the new one entirely. And others try to integrate the different experiences. So because of that, and my aim always was pick the best from each society that I'm traveling to, and also try my best to raise my son in the same way. So that's why I often say that I cannot place myself at any one place, so to say. I have so many identities. In fact, I created a model for this. I do diversity and inclusion workshops, and I created this model called the dial method, which is diversity and inclusion applied in layers. So if someone asks me, describe yourself, how can I do that clearly? I mean, I'm a human, I'm a woman, I'm Hindu, I'm a professor, I'm a single mom, and all those layers are intersecting. You remember the British mathematician John Venn? So Venn's diagram. So all those different circles are intersecting for me, and I create my own Venn diagram. So if I'm creating so many diagrams of my identities where I can exist, I have to also expect that others are similarly. I cannot put them in categories either. So I think because of all that, and also because of this, this deep set feeling that we are all primarily the same. So my father used to call me mother of all humanity, because I used to interfere. That's not the best word to use, but I used to involve myself in others' problems. Problems meaning when I was teaching in India or even here, if they're adjunct professors or if they're part-time professors, I would involve myself on their behalf, or for example, if I would see two children fighting, I would involve myself on behalf of the younger child. So I've always tried my best to take our positions for the underdog. And I think we are all underdogs in some ways, or we can be the not underdog in other ways. So I think the polarity, the pluralness of our existence, all of us, who we are, and I speak a lot about who really we are as human beings, that has allowed me the capacity to inhabit, if that's the word I can use, different spaces and exist at intersections. And I'm most comfortable at intersections because it's not clear cut, so I can make mistakes. That's another very big thing. People say, of course, wise people say that humans err and making mistakes is fine. But I am very critical of myself and the mistakes I make. So I'm constantly trying to put myself in a place that it's okay to make mistakes. So if you stay at the intersections and you imbibe in yourself the capacity to reflect on your own mistakes and make yourself a better human being, I think that all brings it all together for me in my mind, responding to your question, that's how I find myself and in my writings as well.
But if you look at this, I understand what you're saying, and I'm very sympathetic to it. But I would also say, style-wise, as a writer, not just say as someone that has a message to share. Stylistically, can you also comment a little bit about, say, the challenges of using these different styles? Sometimes you very complicated verses. Sometimes it is more like snapshots, and I think actually it's also a compliment, because a snapshot is not per se easier, or a short fiction story. So can you say a little bit about, say, do you have to work and to challenge and to need your words and your talent into that direction of, does it come spontaneously? Why are you so versatile on so many different styles?
Thank you. I took your question in an entirely different direction.
No, there's different levels. There's also the openness in the sense of, But this is another aspect that I was wondering, because it's very diverse. You don't write in one particular style.
Got it. Yes, absolutely. And I think that comes from my personality and my upbringing. I need to diversify in my writings because I tend to get a little, personally, I feel that I have to express myself differently. If I'm writing, for example, I started out writing in free verse. My first book that came out in 1988 called Initiations, I wrote short poems and free verse. There were a few long ones, but short ones. At that time, I believed that the shorter the poem I write, the brevity of words, that is the best. But as time moved forward, I found expressing in longer poems for myself much better, because I had to get it out maybe. Maybe I had spent certain years, I had gathered certain experiences, and I needed to get them out. And so therefore in Hey, Spilt Milk is Spilt, you'll find a combination of short poems, long poems, prose poem, very few rhyme poems I write. And because I really want to challenge myself. In fact, the novel that I've written, that has every few pages, it has rhyme poetry in it. And you were one of the readers for my novel. And that is done in an Onagan stanza. So that's a separate thing. But free verse to long poems, I feel the prose poems that are in What's Wrong with Us Kali Women, they really allow me to merge what is called spoken word. And that's a style that is employed a lot in the United States, particularly by African-American poets. And I worked at Howard University, which is an HBCU. I'm currently working at UDC, which is also an HBCU. And my postdoctoral work was on African-American women. So I have been deeply influenced by the writings of African-American writers and the way they express. And I find that so enigmatic, because spoken word, you actually have to memorize the poem and then stand on a stage and speak it out with dramatization. So I'm not able to do that, but I borrowed gratefully from that style and merged it with poetry. So therefore, prose poetry for me came up. It's not a new style. Many writers have written in prose poetry. And many traditionalists don't appreciate that style. like any other styles. And now what I'm doing is that I want to find a new style. So what I'm doing recently is I'm writing what is called monocues, which are just one line poems, and they have to be 17 syllables or less. This is a kind of an alteration, you can say, of haiku, in which you have 3 lines and 15 syllables in all. So I'm currently writing monocues, and I'm merging Hindi words with English. So trying to combine the languages as well. So I think that's my desire is to constantly express new ways. Even now I feel that I've expressed on so many topics that I cannot express on those topics anymore. I think I've taken it, and I need to find new topics to express on. So hopefully in the coming years, I will be able to do that. So I hope that answers your question.
No, very much. And of course, it triggers also new questions, in a sense, because you said you are inspired by the historical Black experience in the United States, also the way that they voiced their experience, and whether it is in rap or in whatever. But I also remember that you took a strong stand on how easy it is that the Black life can be taken, right? So is that maybe something that you could read a little bit from?
Yes, sure. So it's not that it's a new thing for decades. African Americans have had so many atrocities committed against them. It's just that now, because of easier communication, cell phone and social media, that those the images of the atrocities and the actual atrocities, the videos are coming out. So I wrote this poem because in the last few years, a lot of that had been happening in the United States, much more apparent to us, not that it wasn't happening before. So this is a poem. It's called How Easy It Is for a Black Life to Be Taken. I can't breathe, Eric Garner said. George Floyd said. Who is listening? Who is thinking? Who is cautioning? Justice, injustice, even roughed-edged stones cannot burst tears from those inhuman snatching eyes, inhuman strangleholds, that flesh in a clinch, that breath in a grip, that blueness, that numbness of death slowly inching, snapped without a sanity thought. How easy it is for a Black life to be taken. What goes on in the minds of those pinning down innocence? What goes on in the minds of those being pinned down, or being shot at, or being pulled over, or being arrested, being accosted, being accused, being lynched, burned, choked, raped, extinguished? How easy it is for a Black life to be taken. I can hear their cries, their sweat bursting on terrified faces, their running footsteps, their scared attire rustling in the fragile wind. I can find no reason, no explanations, rationalizations, accounts, excuses. None of the details matter as to what's going on in the minds of those pinning down innocence. I don't hear their imagined fear, their tainted soul, their body without a heart, their superstitious, crude beliefs that arrogantly shout how easy it is for a Black life to be taken. I'm just bird walking, just talking, just breathing. I'm just standing outside the bar. I'm just jogging down the neighborhood where you stood your entitled ground. I'm just driving in my own car. I'm just entering my own home, not showing any aggressive tone. I did not nettle, ingratiate, or fight, provoke, or impregnate, scuffle, or rile. Why is it so easy, a Black life to kill? How easy it is for a Black life to be taken. Castile, Floyd, Garner, Blake, Brown, Rice, Bland, Gray, Martin, Arbery, Taylor, Till. Not just any names. They were living, someone's loved ones, living, alive, stolen, purloined. How easy it is for a Black life to be taken.
Thank you. That's powerful stuff. And this is actually a poem that one of my students chose to write an essay on last year. Because this is when you gave a Q&A and a recorded lecture, because we are still in the days of COVID. Then this was a prose poem that really got to them, because that was also the days that in Amsterdam people were demonstrating because of the killing of Floyd.
Right.
So you see that poetry indeed has a stance in the ongoing conversation of issues of our time. And it is a very strong and powerful voice, because it comes directly to not only the heart, but it gives also in a way a kind of a cry out. It's a very strong message that you realize that these are entitled positions, and they are being and entitled lives, and they're being shattered, right? No.
Correct.
We live in odd times in a way, because we just come out of, at least in Europe, out of this COVID. What is it? It's a kind of a nightmare, right? For 2 years, almost on a standstill, and mostly online teaching and online communication. And here I also find that returning in your work, because in that sense it's a very kind of topical. It's really about our time. This is not a historical book. This is a book that is actually about our lives here and now. And what I find interesting is sometimes the perspective that you take. It's not about per se the people that died, and of course, or the people that were nursing and taking care and sacrificing. All that is there, but you also change the camera in a way towards what people leave behind, and it's not necessarily the loved ones alone, but also the double tragic of, say, the clothes that they wear. Do you
Correct.
remember?
Absolutely, absolutely. And initially, when the pandemic started, there were so many deaths because no one knew how to respond to it. And just seeing so many bodies being put into bags and mass graves, it was just so shocking. And I was, I think, sitting in my bedroom that one of those days when this was happening, the initial months, and I was looking at my closet door opened, and I saw my clothes hanging. And I was thinking, if that could happen to me or any one of us, and what would happen to the clothes of those people that it just went away without a trace. So yes, I did write a poem on that. Yes.
So I really, people that did not read those poems, I really recommend them, because they really change your perspective. But it is also, it's not only by this inanimated clothes that you write about, but it's also about stuff that actually, initially you might be surprised, or you might be overreading or overlooking it in your essays, and then that you write about aliens, about cockroaches, about artificial intelligence, the whole inanimated world. That's fascinating. I remember the essay on the poem on smooth operations, ancient creation. What is the inspiration for this? Why write about? I understand why you write about public issues like Black Lives Matter, about, say, the experiences of being a single mom and an immigrant, about that struggle. Well, what about, say, aliens, cockroaches, artificial intelligence? What triggered that? What's the inspiration for that?
Yeah, right. So again, I think from my childhood, I was always fascinated about our beings, human beings, where they come from. I remember in the olden days, I don't think it happens now in India, maybe in some places it still does, but we used to sleep on the roof, and we used to have these cots, and we used to have mosquito nets. So every night in the summer times, and especially when the breeze was blowing, it was absolutely blissful to sleep in the night on the roof and watch the stars. And our parents used to tell us about the different stars. So I used to always wonder, who are we? Where did we come from? And that kind of thinking has not left me till today. So that's number one. Number two, I believe that, at least that's my feeling, that the way aliens, the ones who are not from this planet, the way they are depicted in movies is why do human believes that we are so narcissist? We actually are very narcissist. We believe that aliens can only look like octopuses and cockroaches, or in the movies. Why can't they look like maybe us, or maybe I don't know, better than us. Who decides what is better?
Angels, right?
Yeah, and look like angels.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very deep, important matter for me. I do believe that our minds should be left open to the possibilities of different planets and lives, beings living on those planets. And also at the same time, on this planet that we know, the one home we know, again, human beings, we are not very nice to each other, mostly very, very cruel or very egotistical. I'm not talking about those who do illegal, immoral things. I'm talking even all of us, on everyday life. We're not the best a human being could be. And when you look at animals, I feel they are better than us. I can't imagine animals planning, to deceive someone or kill someone, or that aspect of cruelty. I think thinking mind like a human being has. So I constantly try to juxtapose in my life and in my poetry this thought process that we are humans and there could be some alien beings and animals. So that respect, a deep respect for someone who could be us or not. And that seeps into my poetry. In one of my poems, I talk about that I'm driving down a road one day and I see a body lying on the other side. And I think, oh, is that a human body lying? But where are the police cars, or where are the other cars? And then I think, oh, could it be a deer? I mean, and then I think, well, traffic would not be held up for miles behind it if it was only a deer. And I keep saying poor deer, but what I'm trying to symbolize is that when it came to a deer, I was thinking poor deer, but I didn't think of the deer's family. Oh. And so I was trying to symbolize that when human beings drive by a body, we may give more emotions to if we think it's a human body than if we think it's an animal body. Yeah. So all those thoughts are, preoccupy my mind, and I bring them into my poetry. And the poem you mentioned, Ancient Creation, where exactly did we come from? So that question is very important for me.
I remember also that one of these poems that I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it immediately. Maybe it's Ancient Creation, or but it's about, say, who is looking at who. Huh?
Correct. Right. That was in Smooth Operators.
From outer space, and you're looking down to Earth, and then the small windows that you've got, who is incarcerated in the zoo and who is not, and so it's also like this changing of perspective, right? Yeah. It's also making us hopefully a little bit more humble. At least that's what I read in those poems. Is that we see ourselves as the summit of creation.
Correct.
But in many ways, like you say, we act like parasites on our environments and
that poem is Smooth Operators.
So it is more in the sense than the idea that some modesty, and that we are part of something bigger.
Right. Correct.
Most likely we are not the only intelligent creatures that were created. But also that comes with responsibility. At least that's the way I would like to read it. That it is also a responsibility for our own actions, how we relate to each other.
And also the environment. Yeah. While we're talking about other species or other species on Earth or elsewhere else and ourselves, but what about the planet? We are pillaging the planet all the time, and we're all part of it. We're all part of the problem, and we're not leaving a very nice home for our future generations to come. And that's it. I was just going to say that since I'm looking at the time, I would recommend, if it's okay with you, to ask our guests
absolutely,
readers.
Absolutely. Actually, my next
whatever is their choice.
But actually, I have a preference, because in my line of questioning, I'm trying to take the moderating back from you, because we are both teachers, we know how it works. But I'm one poem actually particularly I liked. It's about paying my debt to true lens. That's the same thing about the topic in a way, about being an academic and a scholar and teacher, but also coming from another country and trying to find your ways in a new society. It's about struggle, recognition. I can associate it with a lot. But I understood that one of your friends, I think even Deepti, I'm not sure.
Yes, and she was unable to join. She's trying to join right now. I just saw her message, and she's unable to. So if she joins,
then we put that on a hold, because that's really
Yes.
something that I also personally very much liked. I also like the one on Draupadi, because there's a lot of Draupadi coming around in different actually poems. Also, some, I think Lopa or Lopo, who is trying to. Yeah, okay, please. Sorry. Could you share that poem that you selected from on Draupadi with us? Is that possible?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
My name is Lopa Banerjee.
Okay.
Yeah, Lopamudra Banerjee, or you can call me Lopa Banerjee. And I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud and privileged to be a speaker today representing this beautiful book by Anita Nahal, whose writing I admire from the core of my heart. And one of my very favorite poems, all of the poems are very deep, thoughtful, insightful, and favorite of mine for different reasons. But this poem I actually chose because Mahabharata, the epic from India, has so many different layers and shades of womanhood depicted through the various characters. And Draupadi is one such very intriguing and multi-layered character. And Professor Anita Nahal has done such a beautiful job of representing the various shades of modern Draupadi in view of the postmodern times that we are in, the conflict-ridden times, which the poem so deftly analyzes through its prose poem style. That is one of the reasons I chose this, and it's also a very nuanced poem. So without much ado, I will just read the poem of Anita Nahal, Maryada and Modern Draupadi. And Maryada is the sense of propriety, righteousness, and honor, which we associate women with in our culture. But it becomes like there come the various layers, because Maryada or honor is depicted in a way that it also unfolds the double standards of our Indian society too, in some way, which is depicted in the poem so nicely. Maryada and Modern Draupadi. I am a modern Draupadi. No, not with 5 husbands, but could have if I wanted. Polyandry was shoved into me by childhood myths, pedestalized by Bollywood. In real life, polygamy held the Trishul. So don't worry about my Maryada. You chalk out yours in permanent markers and I will sketch mine in colorful crayons. I can paint castles in the air. I can paint the evergreens, the Himalayas, the Congo Basin, the Great Barrier Reef, the Sahara Desert, the Niagara Falls. I can sail at dawn through the Nile, fly at the canyon at noon, and kiss at the Taj Mahal in the moonlight. Or I can tiptoe into your bedroom, or his, and his, and his, and his. I perspire and perspire, and my ardor heats up, and I run for ice, holding myself within my own Maryada before the wetness boils over. I am a modern Draupadi. Don't let men dance on my little fingers, nor do I gamble. And spirits only touch my mouth when I am with special lovers. Pure scents on my wrists, behind my earlobes, swoon me even more, as do words of passion and playful banter. I love my curves, my fussiness, my asanas, my boogieing, my quiet musings and scribblings, and sleeping skin to sheet. I love your wittiness, smoothiness, flavorings like early morning summer rains. I am Draupadi's wishes and yearnings that bring a winter fire's coziness, not scalding of war. Disdain of women against woman, man against woman, man against man, or anyone against LGBTQ, whizzes through the midst, reaching me like a hissing coal, and I simmer and simmer and simmer till the heat becomes fiercer and I boil over. I watch my steps, I watch everybody, I listen to all the footsteps. I may not acknowledge anybody. I learn from Draupadi to rein in my anger, to quieten my hunger, to not leave around temptations that could shake foundations of familial relationships that, as it is, are mired. From decades of squabbles are extremely tired, that I don't bid to push into perpetual eclipses. I want to feel special when I lay down, unforgettable. So I chose to be me. So I chose to be me, a woman, earthy and sensual.
Whoa.
Such a beautiful, multi-layered poem with so many nuances, not only of the Mahabharata, but how modern women are represented in our society. Thank you very much for the honor and opportunity.
Thank you, Lopa. Thank you so much. You read it beautifully.
Absolutely.
Really beautifully.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Shall we go on with another
Uh-huh.
reading? It would be
Yeah.
nice, right? Because I really get a taste now for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask, and I'm sorry for the pronunciation of your names, but Besadara Roy Chatterjee, is that?
Yeah, Basudra Roy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's my Dutch.
Hello, everybody. So this is early good morning from here, and warm afternoon to everybody there. And thank you for making me a part of this wonderful discussion. It is asking all the right questions, and it kind of adds to our knowledge of this wonderful book that we are celebrating today. So reading a poem that's titled, Kali asks, 2, 3 repeated or karmic wrongs make a right? I'm woken in the middle of the night by nightmares of infernos gulping homes. Smoke rising and rising, nowhere to go. I'm woken up in the middle of the night by the squeals of tornadoes and tempests, volleying up their impenetrable bodies against weaker souls. I'm woken up by whispers, innuendos, pleas and gasps. Woken up by jolts of human tongues, spitting out the most punitive words to demean, to deride, to kill. 2 wrongs, 3 wrongs, repeated wrongs, karmic wrongs. The loop keeps looping. No one to pull rein in or break the cursed circle to commence afresh. My skin scalds, my skin corrugates, my skin festers. I don't give up. I'm Kali and Parvati, and I'm a dark and a goddess too. I can control time, alter time, make time difficult for you, take you away from time. I'm magnificent, I forgive. I have streaming passion that is filled with Shiva's Tandavam. He may lay at my feet, may seem in abeyance, may seem asleep on purpose. Mistake not, he's very aware, maybe in awe, in veneration of my Shakti, my ardor that fills him, rouses and arouses him, keeps him guessing. I'm modern, I'm a traditionalist. I destroy, I love. And I make love in all my forms and moods. And I'm just, I'm benign. I seem much more subterranean than my third eye. I scrabble the third often to make sure no scrap of learning is left untouched. I may not fully understand each entry in my brain cells, but I seek it. Let it rest in the sun. Marinate, not curdle. I caress it, I prod it. I hope that humans can feel it too. I'm a female goddess, just imparting unscrupulously what is circulating in my frame. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you. Vasudha.
Realize that you have to read it, right? If you hear it read aloud, presented, then it is, well, even more impressive than when you just read it.
Yes, I feel that these verses have a very strong incantative power. When you read it, the right seems like an incantation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vasudha. That was beautiful. Thank you.
And shall we go to Angela Lee? Is that the...
Yes.
Hello, Angela.
Hi. So my poem
it's called Babylon, My Sinful Dance Muse. It's on page 38. And I think it's a great compliment to the first poem about Maryada, because this is so American. It's about a dance club, and it really resonates with one of the book's main themes that Dr. Nahal herself said, which is single parenthood. And as a single mother, I think a big theme in this book is in America and India, you have this identity as just a mother and as somebody's ex-wife and a woman of society. But what about just the woman who wants to go out and have fun? And I love this poem because it's so American. It's a lot of fun. And I thought it was a nice compliment to some of the deeper themes about womanhood, propriety in both the US and India. So Babylon, My Sinful Dance Muse. I found it one day, searching for a place to learn line dancing in Northern Virginia suburbs, just a footstep from my beloved Washington, D.C. I did more than learn. I danced, I loved, I lost, I pined, felt it all. My sinful dance muse, Babylon, where I could let go with no one to judge me except me. A glass of champagne or two serenaded, along with many men who wanted to know where I was from, accentuating in baritone, "You are so exotic," while shaking hands with their middle finger caressing my palm just so swiftly, innocuously. Came to know later they were testing if I was up for a one-night stand. No, man, go find another loser. The club grew on me, as did its men. Most women there became sisters of convenience. My sinful love, Babylon, with low lights, hookahs and cigars, go-go bands, DJ and club music, food and spirits aplenty. Oh, the word was plenty, not aplenty. That was my interjection. And the dance floor was like my bed that I could make love on with the man of my fantasies without any desi pointing a finger. Hey you, have you gone mad? A woman with a grown-up son, dancing in mini dresses late at night, drinking booze in those cheesy American clubs instead of prostrating before Hindu gods, praying for peaceful old age. Babylon, thank you for being my sinful dance muse. Wow. I thought this was beautiful. It shows that it's very postmodern. It shows the time lapse between Indian time and the advance of society and how much more progressive American society is for a woman. And it just shows that, you know, India might have some catching up to do before they can accept that a single mother can go to an American dance club and just have innocent fun without being judged by society. So this was a lot of fun to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you for selecting this one. And actually, a confession is that I've been to Babylon, and it is accurate. Okay, thank you so much. Well, the time is running, so I really would like to have Meenakshi Mohan, if she is present, to
here I am.
read her speech.
First of all, happy Easter to everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would also like to thank DC South Asian Arts and Literary Council for initiating this program. It's really wonderful. And thank you very much for moderating the program, Dr. Dielson. Thank you, Anita, for inviting me to read one of your poems. As Dr. Dielson said, all of the poems here are so beautiful. You know, I have your book here, and they have, like, you know, these are written from your personal point of view, but they have kind of universal appeal. And there is one poem that I really, really liked very much, and I'm going to read that. From that poem, it's called A Window with a View. When it snows or rains, I sit at my favorite spot to write poetry. My heart feels like a collapsing sandcastle, wet and brackish from COVID-19 losses. Legs folded, curled up on the sectional, a side table standing utilitarian with my morning chalice of chai latte and some biscuits. I'm prepared for the world and poetry, seeing the coconutty, cottony snow pouring dense, unremitting and engaged. I easily glide into a stargaze, wherein free-floating flakes seem promising. Bone to skin, salt, sugar to mouth, lathered cream to Earl Grey, I feel the crispness and nippiness of granular pearls on my skin, and I hear them falling loose from a slim choker perched daintily on the crochet lace around the neckline of my ivory chiffon kaftan. I pick them up. They are velvety and hot, like marshmallows in a s'mores above a wintry fire in the gazebo. I see myself cavorting on tiptoes in porcelain teacups, stepping carefully on eggshells crafted from alabaster. I feel I'm in a Disney movie, and as the reels slide by, I continue to look outside as mesmerizing vignettes pirouette around my meditations. The rice-colored pages of my diary lay unfelt and dry like parchment paper, and I doodle some daisies instead of couplets. My lips curl as I take a linen napkin and wipe the remnants of pleasing ruminations and confectionery iotas and swallow the last sip of frothy chai. This poem is written in a prose poetry, but I find it reading like a poem. It's so beautifully written, very profound, and it speaks my heart. So that's the reason I chose this poem to read.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohan. Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. And the power of words here and the worlds that you've been taking into by these words is really kind of something. Am I correct that Dipti is not here?
No, Deepti has joined.
Oh, okay.
I made it.
Okay, good, Dipti.
Yes, you know,
I
I was there, I was listening,
Uh-huh.
but I don't think that other people could see me. So I could hear my name and I was getting ready, but I was like, oh, maybe they cannot see me. That's fine. I'm
Okay.
in the car. Happy Easter to everybody.
Okay.
And it's an honor for me to be here today. And I will be reading Paying My Debt to Two Lands.
Okay.
So here we go. I
Dry
left
catch.
my India, where as a child, I learned to swim in the river Ganga. For Hindus, the most sacred waters. My father tied an empty tin box for learners to my chest and guided me into gushing waters in the holy city of Haridwar. I was terrified less, mesmerized more by Ganga, flowing
And then
Yeah, there, she's back.
Gang- in the evening. I was terrified less, mesmerized more by Ganga flowing by in all its might, signaling at me like a protective grandparent. In the evening, tiny paper boats with lights seemed like fireflies out seeking companionship. And sometimes I saw ashes of cremated Hindus drifting by, with only yellow marigolds peeking above the water like solemn pallbearers. Overwhelmed, my little frame huddled next to my parents, all of us reflecting in the night waters. It was cultural spirituality attempting to bond with me. I left my India as my ex wouldn't let me be, forcing me to eat my breathing, my emotions, my words that wanted to express freedom. Now, I live near the Potomac waters of another nation's capital, encircling the stately monuments of history in my America. A new bond has been forged. My son will cremate me one day in this land that became our savior, keeping only a handful of my ashes to go into the Ganga, so that my soul pays its debt to two lands.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I
Thank you.
thank all contributors. I'm looking at the clock, and indeed, if they are very strict, they are going to cut us off. But I want to thank all contributors, all people being present. And I would really recommend all of us actually to realize that this can also be got as a Kindle book. So it's only for $3, but it is so rich and so beautiful. So if you have any gifts to give to any of your loved ones, buy this little booklet or give it on their phones. It's really something that opens your hearts and your view of the world. And it is also a book of hope. It's a book of hope because there's even a poem on hope I read on Dr. Martin Luther King, on Gandhi, on Mandela. what I like, and there's a hole in my heart, but my heart is whole. This is also one of those stanzas that I really, really love. And I would like to end with your father, because I think this is a reference to your father when he was on his loner's walks. I think that's a poem by itself.
Yes.
What I liked in that is that he said, you should come along with me on those walks, and you take us to these walks, because it is the experience of seeing a life.
Thank you.
Life. And that is what you let us be, to this kind of window with a view, the room with a view, to all the other poems that has been read today, and all the other poems that are there to be read and to be shared. So I really thank you for being this guiding spirit among us, and to let us see the world through your eyes and through your heart and through your words. And I continue sharing this, and I recommend everyone to share your words, your work, with all the people that I love and that I care for. So thank you for Anita to being, well, the person on our pedestal today, and it's so deserved. And I wish everyone an excellent continuing remains of the day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, DB. Really appreciate your words and moderating this session. Thank you so much.
Hope to see you soon in life.
Yes, absolutely. I see Brittany there.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Nahal, for
It was very nice.
sharing your words. They're very beautiful. GC South Asian Arts Council creates a platform, to house and amplify these voices. And I just feel, grateful to be graced by such company. So thank you for all attendees and all speakers and all writers, and of course our moderator. And yes, hope everybody enjoys the rest of their long weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Take
Take
care.
good care of yourselves.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Brittany.